Okay. There's been lots of Mormon backlash to the backlash of the 100 billion. Mormons are coming out and saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with the church being filthy rich. There's nothing wrong with the manner in which they run the operation, and there's no IRS violations, yada yada yada. They just deny. And it's a common thing for those who are criminals to do this. Deny, right up until the time you are convicted in a jury in a criminal court. And even then, they still go down yelling, I did nothing wrong, I'm innocent. The point with 100 billion is this is a separate entity. Because it's a separate entity, it doesn't fall under the umbrella entity of the corporation of the church. It's still run and operated by the church, but it's a separate entity which requires a separate Articles of Incorporation. This is what all of the Mormons are not getting. And that's what the church is in denial of. We are conforming with all known applicable laws and tax procedure, blah blah blah. They're lying. They're lying. They got caught from within because of a whistleblower. And then people are saying, well, whistleblowers aren't known. Yeah, they are. They can be. And so when people outright deny but don't explain what is wrong with the argument against them, you know they're lying. They've got no defense. They got caught. And so take for example a kid gets caught by their mother with a hand in the cookie jar. And the mother says, you know you aren't supposed to have a cookie before dinner? And they say, I'm not getting a cookie. And yes you are, I see your hand in the cookie jar. No, this is they have no explanation other than just to say no. It's not what it looks like. You're not seeing what you're seeing. They're lying. And that's what the church is doing. They're not coming out and saying, no, the tax laws are for the corporation of the president and not for this Ensign Peak Associates. And Ensign Peak Associates is under the general category. They're not saying that at all. Why? Because it's not true. They can't say that. Because Ensign Peak is a separate entity that requires separate IRS forms and Articles of Incorporation. Each corporation under a corporation has to have their own separate Articles of Incorporation as to whether they're religious, just a non-profit, or a sole corporation, or whatever. And so the guy, David Nielsen, showed in his video the ABC4 News Utah, the Washington Post, any other news outlet. They aren't showing this. They're only talking about it, summing it up for their viewers without showing the primary sources. The Washington Post, I don't know if they're doing that or if they're just summing up the whistle report as well. But I went to the source because the guy did his own videos. 7-minute one and an hour and 17 minutes or something like that. He shows through graphs and charts, and he shows the actual Articles of Incorporation. And that's where the church is in trouble. And that's where Mormons don't get it. The church is in denial, throwing out all these distractions, saying, oh, we're following the Bible about the parable of the talents. Did you read the one just before it? Did you read the one about the Jesus and the rich man? And so, yeah, the church is in big trouble. And they can't just lie their way out of it and hope it'll go away, or hope that the IRS won't investigate, which they may not. But we're in Christmas season, and even my lawsuit against the church is delayed. And so, as much as I have that motion, the second motion for service, I may just wait until, I don't know. Really, she took a recess for 2 weeks right after I filed, after the Thanksgiving holiday. And then she goes the whole week without doing anything. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe she's, hoping that the government won't shut down like I mentioned to her. And so she's just taking that into consideration to wait. But the government wasn't shut down, and so I don't know. But that's a different issue. This is just the topic of outright liars who just say, nope, not true, fake news. Witch hunt, all those lines that people use, but don't actually have anything to support how it's a witch hunt, how it's fake news, how it's a lie. And they have to do that. Not because of the person who's criticizing is just making up criticism. Say, for example, the mother finds the kid with a hand in the cookie jar and says, you stole my curling iron last week, didn't you? You have your hand in the cookie jar, and that means you stole my curling iron. And curling iron's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with it. So the child can't possibly be expected to explain the curling iron. It's an irrational response request. And so when, for example, Trump, with his impeachment, the impeachment's about Trump. It's not about Biden. It's not about Hillary Clinton. It's not about anybody else but Trump. He can't deflect and blame other people for him, his actions. Because that's what it's all about, is him. Focuses on him. And he doesn't want it to be focused on him because he's going to get in trouble. Same with the church. They're going to get in trouble. If the Bidens did do something wrong, it has to be a separate and distinct investigation. The Trump investigation must still continue. The impeachment must go on, but it cannot involve the Bidens, which is a completely separate case. And apparently it's already been decided that there's nothing there, and so there won't be a case. But to keep on pushing to investigate, to create a case, and to say that that's the cause that needs to be focused and not Trump. Can you imagine the church pulling a stunt like that? Rather than just denying? And that's what they've done, though, with the September 6th. When they excommunicated them, that was retaliation. They were deflecting away from the lies that the church has been telling about church history, and took it out on the September 6th, who uncovered those lies. And the retaliation was excommunication, firing from BYU history department, and so Mormons were then able to say, oh yeah, they got excommunicated, so there was something wrong with them. The church is good. See how that works? It's horrifying that the church will not take responsibility for their errors. And that's all they had to do, was come out and say, we were not a part of the founding of the church with the Smiths, because all those who were involved with the organization of the church either left the church or were murdered, Joseph and Hiram. And so Brigham Young, he didn't know the origins, and so yeah, lots of errors crept in as a result. They could have just done that, confessed, and said, we are working with our church historians to find the real truth, but no. Instead, they had to cover it up by excommunicating the September 6th and firing them and disgracing their names and all that. D. Michael Quinn, I think, is the only one that I know of who survived unscathed, because he's now become a popular publisher with his Mormon Hierarchy trilogy. The Power one came out last year, I think. So I got all three. Haven't read them. I don't use them in my research, and that's sad. I got a comment today concerning how I am disclosing the real history of the origins of the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith with the church, and the person commented that Joseph was a crook because Fawn Brody's No Man Knows My History said so. You can't use authors as your source information, guys. And so that's why I don't use D. Michael Quinn's books for my source information. Authors are supposed to use primary sources. And so Wikipedia then should not be referencing the authors, but the primary sources within the books. So it's frustrating when people don't do things the right way, when people lie and cover it up. And I can see the church messing with Wikipedia with their multi-billions to cover things up as well, because I've searched on Wikipedia for other topics and have had no problems until I get to the church research. And then all of a sudden, well, how did you get to that? Where did he, and how? There's so many questions and gaps, just like in church history on the Wikipedia page. You have to search the internet for the missing information that Wikipedia on church information doesn't give you. And that's frustrating when you're trying to find the truth. When the church only comes out and says, we are the truth, you will obey, or you're just stay away and leave us alone. You know, that's not Christ-like, guys. And Mormons, you should know better. You don't cover up sin. Remember, many are called, but few are frozen. Section 121 of the Doctrine and Covenants. You had to memorize that scripture in seminary and in institute and on your mission. And so it's just blatantly obvious that the church is covering up, deceiving, and lying. They even admit it in the gospel topic essays. Yeah, this is now the truth. Are you sure? Because we can't trust you anymore. And we can't. You can't trust the gospel topic essays. You know, they show a rock, but it's not the rocks that Joseph had. It's just, And so, I hope Mormons understand that you can't just deny and claim that as the truth. That's not a sound argument. That doesn't win you a debate. When a legitimate complaint, and that's what this is, the guy reported to the IRS. He's not going online and saying, hey, the church has $100 billion and it's wrong. No, because that would be his opinion. He made an official complaint to the IRS. You can't do that unless you've got the evidence. And he shows us the evidence in his videos. He allows us access to download his 74-page document. I hope you got it. I hope you read through it. I got it. I get all the Trump stuff also. I read the Mueller report. I knew Trump was busted. I knew that Mueller didn't pursue following the money. And that's why Trump did not collude with Russia. Because Mueller didn't follow the money. Because the Deutsche Bank thing, for example, is still in the courts. Trump is still pushing it to go up to the Supreme Court to decide. And even if the Supreme Court said, nope, sorry, Trump, you have to turn it over, the Deutsche Bank records, your tax records, he'll still refuse. Because that's what he does. And we can't let the church get away with this too. They have to disclose things. They've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And they've got no other explanation than, no, it's not. And they won't let go of the cookie to pull their arm out. So, Mormons, stop it. This is not Christ's way. Quit the lies for the church. Quit the deceptions for the church. Don't give loyalty to the church for their corruption. And that's what this is. This is financial corruption. This is white-collar crime. You know, multi-billionaires don't get their wealth without getting their hands dirty. We need them out of government. We need them out of religion.